Hey guys, what's up? I'm back with another video today, and today I'm doing my Alabama versus Notre Dame preview and prediction. So as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Help me get to 150 subscribers before the end of the year. I did a live stream for the Clemson Notre Dame game, so if you want to watch my live and instant reactions, sorry it's a little bit chopped up. My computer wasn't working that well, so I only did about half the game. But hopefully, maybe I will be able to do a live stream for the Alabama Notre Dame game, just depending on whether or not I have time or stuff like that. We will see. Make sure you like this video if you enjoy it. Comment all your thoughts and opinions as always. And let's get started with today's video. So Alabama is going to probably be the toughest opponent Notre Dame has faced all year. Even though Clemson is a very good team, I think that Alabama is an offensive juggernaut. But I think that Clemson also has a better defense. So I think that this could be another high-scoring game. I think that Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, and Mac Jones are all really good and all possibly, like, you could debate whether they're Heisman finalists, which that'd be crazy if three of them were Heisman finalists. But both Notre Dame and Alabama don't have their centers, and Landon Dickerson and Jared Patterson for Notre Dame. So that will be interesting to see whether or not that causes any problems. I don't think it would, but we'll see. Alabama's defense has really been a disappointment, and Notre Dame, the biggest thing they struggled against Clemson was their defense, or their offense being able to get points on the board. We'll see whether or not Notre Dame is able to get points on the board. I think Notre Dame would be able to get points on the board because the biggest thing that they have is they're able to run the ball, and the biggest problem for Alabama is that they allow a lot of running plays, especially against like a team like Ole Miss or Florida. They allowed a lot of running yards, they allowed a lot of passing yards, so we'll see whether or not Patrick Surtain and his defense is able to stop that passing attack and running attack by Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame should be able to pound the ball a little bit more than they were against Clemson. I think that should be interesting. It will be really interesting to see whether Ian Book's mobility will be able to become a factor. It was not in the second game against Clemson. It was a big factor in the first game against Clemson. We'll see if the big game nerves come up again for Notre Dame, with Notre Dame losing to Alabama the last time they played 42-14, a game that was really disappointing as a Notre Dame fan. That will be a really interesting game to see whether or not Notre Dame is able to get a running game started and to physically beat up Alabama. That, I think, will be the biggest difference. If Alabama isn't able to physically beat Notre Dame, it is going to be a really tough job and a tough assignment to have Alabama beat Notre Dame just because Notre Dame is physically able to beat up teams. I think another interesting thing is the time of possession. Notre Dame won the time of possession. I think it was like 35-25 in the ACC game, but it obviously didn't matter. I think that this game could matter because if Notre Dame is able to get a lot of drives going and waste 6-7 minutes off the clock, they do have to convert into touchdowns, and that's one of the biggest things is Notre Dame able to convert field goals from the Clemson game into touchdowns? Because if, let's say, they got a touchdown on that first drive, and instead of missing that 24-yard field goal, they got another touchdown, it's 14-7 instead of 7-3. That could be a really big difference, and I think if Notre Dame gets those 14 points, I think a momentum changes a lot, and then maybe Avery Davis catches that pass, and you kick the field goal and it's 17-7 rather than just 7-3 again. So Notre Dame left a lot of points on the board in both Clemson games. We'll see whether Notre Dame's offense will be able to make up for that. I think that Notre Dame's wide receivers will be really interesting. I think even though they're not as special or as talented as Devontae Smith or even the injured Alabama wide receivers, I think that could be really interesting to see whether or not they're able to compete with Alabama's top and talented defensive backs. I think that their size and their skill may be able to help them with Ben Skoranek and Javon McKinley helping there. But it might be interesting to see whether Avery Davis or Brandon Lindsey gets involved. Those are more of the speed wide receivers that Notre Dame has. Avery Davis did not have a big game against Clemson in the second game. He dropped a critical 4th and 6 pass. So that really hurt Notre Dame in the points category. And he almost basically ran past the ball On the defensive side of the ball, Notre Dame, I think, has an advantage. Notre Dame's defense is a little bit harder to beat, even though they allowed 34 points to Clemson. That was only one more point than they did allow in the first matchup. So technically, you could say that Notre Dame's defense played just as well in the second matchup as they did in the first matchup. I think Notre Dame's got to be able to stop the big plays. They got to limit those. They got to do whatever they can to stop it. If that means taking Sean Crawford off the field, that means taking Sean Crawford off the field. Sean Crawford has somehow lost a step, and I think that could really, really hurt Notre Dame if he doesn't play well and begin to continue to do that. I think that we'll see whether. I think the biggest key to the game is Ian Book's mobility able to change the game. And I think that will be really interesting to see whether he does that. So with Notre Dame's defense and Ian Book's mobility on offense, I think that will be the biggest keys for Notre Dame. For Alabama, it's just playing Alabama football. It's physically beating up Notre Dame, and it's being able to pass the ball, run the ball whenever they want to. So as always, make sure you hit the 2 videos down below. Hit the subscribe button up here if you haven't already. And as always, have a great day.